All right, are you guys ready for a TJ build video? Well, this isn't just any TJ, this is the TJ. And in this video, I'm gonna explain what that means. So let's go take a look. Hey everybody, it's Bubba with X's 4x4, and we build badass 4x4s. This is a very special video. This is a video about a Jeep that's been here for a very long time. I'm not gonna tell you how long it's been here because it's kind of embarrassing for me to say that. Action. Hey everybody, it's Bo with X's 4x4.
This is a 5-year montage of not working on the red TJ.
But just know that there comes a point in a shop owner's life.
There comes a point in a man's life
when a customer comes along with a Jeep build that's going to take a little bit longer than what he expected it to take. Sometimes it takes years, multiple years, to get said Jeep build done. And this is that Jeep build. So this started out, I believe it's a 98 TJ. And the man that owns it is the original owner. I believe whenever it got here, it had 60,000 miles on the odometer. And it was a basic TJ. It was a little two-door, had a 4-cylinder, manual transmission, junky axles. It was the bare minimum of a TJ build. But it was very period correct for what it was. I mean, it had the suspension on everything that you probably would have put on it in 1998. So Ben came to me a while back and he asked if I could build him a V8 Jeep out of his TJ. And I said, yeah, I can do it, because I don't think I had anything going on at the time. I was kind of in between builds. So I took the job on. He and I discussed what exactly he wanted, and we came up with a really great plan.
Come out to the coast, we get together, have a few laughs.
It wasn't long after that, you know, somebody came in and needed something done, and jobs like that are, you know.
It was gonna be easy, quick in and out.
And that's kind of necessary to have cash flow when you own a business. This wasn't cash flow. This was gonna be around for a long time. And so you start taking jobs on like that when you're by yourself, and then you go back to this job and you tinker with it here, and then another job comes in, and you know, it just becomes a cycle of things. And eventually, you end up years later finishing the build. Sometimes shops never finish the build. We did. What we ended up with was nothing, almost nothing like what we started out planning to build. We knew we wanted to do a V8, we knew we wanted to do 40-inch tires, that we were gonna do some big axles in it, and we knew we were gonna do shocks. The shocks came relatively early in the build, so they actually stuck around.
The design of the axles changed a little bit.
We're always working on the red TJ.
I can't remember exactly what we were gonna do for axles.
The red TJ is still here. We'll talk about it some more one day. Thank you for zooming past that. It just kept escalating. The longer the Jeep was there, the grander the ideas became between myself and the owner. And in the end, I think we built one of the most beautiful TJs that I've ever seen. Yeah, you can go home now, Ryan. So let's go over what we built here, and let's start on the very front end of this thing. So we knew we wanted to stretch it out. I think in the beginning we started with a TNT, I think it's TNT Customs, right? Is the name of the company. We don't use them very much. So TNT Customs, we did a front stretch on it, basically brought the sway bar mounts forward some, then the steering gearbox location out some. My friend Tony, that worked for us for a little while, Tony DeWitt, he actually built this front bumper. I wouldn't say it's a bumper, it's really the frame, but it's essentially like a cow catcher on the front of this thing with a Warren 8274. So I knew that I was gonna need a narrow winch and I was gonna need a tough winch for this Jeep. And the 8274, it looks really good and clean on the front of this Jeep also. So we went with the 8274. Tony built this, you know, heavy duty front end on this thing that the 8274 bolts up to. Factor 55 fair lead with the ultra hook up here, red, about as red as we could get from Factor 55 to match the Jeep. We did a mount here for the Baja Design LP4s in the front. We wanted some amber dust lights for them down here and some really gnarly clevis mounts down here for your shackles. I mean, it's built. This thing is built crazy. It's crazy tough. PSC gearbox. That was one of the things that we fought a lot on this thing, was getting the steering to work exactly the way we wanted to on here. Took a lot of trial and error between tie rods and drag links and manufacturing different things to make them work, but we got it dialed in and it steers great. One thing I will say about this Jeep is a testament to when customers just let you do what you want to do, right? They just give you the freedom of design and execution on this thing. And that's exactly what Ben did. And in the end, we built a Jeep that I cruise this thing on the interstate going 90, 95 miles an hour sometimes. And it's glued to the road. It's flat. We used a sway lock, off-road only sway lock on the front, give him a dual rate sway bar, because when he goes rock crawling in this thing, we want him to be able to really flex it out. We painted the grille to match the what we call the accent color on this, or the second accent color on it. It's going to be this charcoal kind of gray. That is the original grille for this Jeep, by the way, and hood. We went with the charcoal gray on that, and the fenders, and a few other parts on this Jeep are that gray, the center console and the dash, and then this hood louver. Most of the accessories that you're going to recognize on this Jeep are going to be Poison Spyder. Back in its day, Poison Spyder made some of the nicest, if not the nicest, Jeep parts or accessories for Jeep Wranglers between TJ and JK. Poison Spyder was the shit. And you're going to see a Poison Spyder cage, Poison Spyder fenders, highlines in the front, the hood louver, even the steps on the sides, these sliders, all Poison Spyder. And I'm not going to tell you how this Jeep is, but I'm going to touch on these wheels real quick. If you know what ATX Chamber Pro 2s are, that's what this Jeep is running. We also had those powder coated to match the gray that's on here, indistinguishable. It looks, it's the identical color. And it looks so good when we did the ring in red. But if anybody knows anything about Chamber Pro 2s, they were one of my favorite wheels. I was really, really sad when they got discontinued, but they were brand new when I bought them for this Jeep build. Radflow shocks, Radflow triple bypass shocks, and coilovers all the way around. It rides great. It does need to be shock tuned. We don't have a place to do that here, but I'm going to recommend some guys to Ben to take it out and get shock tuned. Even without the shock tuning, it's really nice. But the Radflow coilovers and bypass shocks, you don't see us install them a lot. I think that's more of an education thing between us and the customers. We just don't really push them too much. But on this build, it's what we wanted to use, and they worked out great. Custom mounts front and rear. So we did do a Clayton triangulated 4-link rear, Clayton 3-link front. Works great. It's fully functional, fully adjustable. Everything, just like I said, everything about this build is really gnarly. It does really, really well. If I had to change anything on this build as it is right now, I would leave the joints the way they are, but I'd probably do Summit Machine arms in black and then have our logo engraved on them after the anodizing, and I would put that in there instead of the Clayton arms that are square tubing, because that's really, when you stand back and you look at this Jeep, that's the only thing that kind of doesn't seem like it fits the build, is the Clayton control arms. Let me show you under the hood, and really I'm going to get in here in a minute and show you some of the detail on the front end of this thing, but Tony did a great job fabricating some really, really nice fixtures and mounts for this. But I like what's underneath the hood. So when he said, I want to build an LS, one of my favorite LS engine builds is the 6-liter LS. So it's going to be the Gen 4 LS, cast iron Gen 4 6-liter with a Brian Tooley racing cam in it. I believe, I don't have the exact numbers from the dyno, but it produced the same amount of power as what we've done previously. I've built a couple of those engines before for JKLS swaps in the past, and right around flywheel powers right around 500 horsepower. And in a lightweight TJ build like this, you really, really feel it when you step on the gas. It's an amazing, solid build. 6L80E transmission. We did do a JK Sport transfer case on this. It just really, really works. If you notice, we flipped the intake around on here, so your air filter, your throttle body and air filter inside the cab, inside past the firewall. So if you ever want to change your air filter out on this, you have to actually, there's an access port through the center console to get that out. So Hydro Boost. We didn't want to mess around with vacuum brakes on here. I just, whatever. The Hydro Boost is amazing. We were going to use a Hydro Boost power steering pump anyways on the GM engine. So we went ahead and added this Hydro Boost kit. Works flawless, works great. Electrically, we gutted every single wire out from underneath the dash, the body, everywhere. As you can see, we ran some blocks over there, some distribution blocks. So anytime we add power to this thing, we just tie in over there and pull our power. But everything's pretty full now. I don't really see any reason to take away or add anything to this build. Got a Bod Designs light bar up there that we built custom brackets for it. I'll show you those in a minute. Scott Roberts that works for us. He's an amazing human being. That is, I've said this before, he is really good at taking my childish ideas and turning them into reality. So I'll say, hey, I think we can make a bar mount here, and I think we can make it look like this. And Scott just sort of reads my mind, and he builds a mount so we could use the Bod Designs XL linkable lights. I think that's what they're called, right? Man, I'm terrible at keeping track of the proper nomenclature of these things.
Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature.
But that's a very popular light bar that we install a lot on different builds. But we tied in right here on the roll bar. The roll bar mounts to the A-pillar on the windshield here, and we made these really nice bracket. I mean, they're perfect. What more could you ask for than that right there? It's super stable. It's not going anywhere, and I mean, it just looks awesome. How many TJs have that light bar on them? None. This one. That's it. That's all you're getting. These mirrors came from CarTech. You know, these are, you know, your buggy mirrors, whatever, but the ones that typically you would mount to a roll cage, a DOM tubing roll cage. Super solid, super steady. They're not going anywhere, and they look clean on here. We powder coated them. Everything to match. Everything red on here is the same color red, whether it's powder coat or not. I believe what we did was that we actually powder coated all the parts that we wanted, and then we had the body shop repaint the body to match the powder coat that we use, so it's perfect. Mastercraft seats probably wouldn't be the seats that I would use nowadays, but again, a lot of things that you see or hear me talk about on this build is stuff that was, at the time, the parts to use. Some of those parts we did change out, but some of them we didn't because we just got too far, and then we kind of weighed out the pros and cons of whether or not it was worth changing. The seats were part of that. For what Ben's gonna be doing with this Jeep, these seats are gonna be fine. We've got some gnarly straps in there. We did the submarine strap, so he's got a 5-point harness in here. We have a youth seat in the back because during this time, Ben has also gotten married and had a child. And so we put a youth seat in the back so he could strap his daughter in back there and take her for rides in this. Oh, Poison Spider tire carrier in the back too. That was something that we were lucky to get some of these parts. I remember as we were buying some of these parts up that, you know, they were getting harder and harder to source. We were lucky to get them. And that, I'm just glad that we could build from one end to the other a lot of everything Poison Spider. Moto-Built, we did a lot of Moto-Built back here. We did their fuel tank. I think it's advertised as a 15. You're lucky if you get a little bit more than 10 gallons in this thing, but for this build, that's enough. We did cut the tub out back here and we put these inner fenders. I don't know what you call these, inner fenders. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, we installed these. These are from Moto-Built. They came out great. They gave us all the room that we needed because we built custom shock towers underneath here for the bypasses and coilovers. And then we built the sway bar mount. Tony really did a good job fabricating that sway bar. We got the parts from CarTech and kind of really just built our own sway bar back here. Artec back half kit, that was like, again, you know, that was the shit back when they made it. And then everybody else came out with a back half kit for TJs after that. I think Moto-Built. Had Moto-Built's back half kit been available at the time, we probably would have used it instead. And then we just kind of closed up the back here. We made it really flush. When I set the rear axle, I set it here because I couldn't really put it back here, but I wanted him to have the most gnarly departure angle. If he wants, he can actually pull this tire carrier off and then he would just come down stuff and he would be stick out. I think the rear sticks out about 2 inches past the back of the Jeep. Without the tire carrier, but with the tire carrier, obviously he's kind of limited by that. So when it came to axles, the easiest thing to do was what we did. We used Super Duty axles. I used 99 to 04 for a reason. I didn't want to cut all that casting off. We custom built the axle shafts from Dutchman. We had Dutchman build the axle shafts for this. So we put a little extra tube length on the driver's side of the axle, front axle, and we took some out of the passenger side. So we just really, what we did was move the pumpkin on the front. We moved it over the diff towards the center a little bit. And that gave us plenty of room for the bypasses and the coilovers in the front. On the rear, there's a trick you can do on the Sterling 10.5 axles. It's kind of like what I said in the front. You take some from the passenger side, put it on the driver's side, and it moves the diff around. Well, you do the opposite on the rear, on the Sterling. The axle shafts actually will tell you exactly how to center the diff. But if you swap the passenger side and the driver's side axle shafts around, and you move the diff accordingly, you reuse the axle shafts and the diff's actually centered. So that's what we did on the rear. We moved the diff over opposite way and centered it. It all worked out. We built the truss over the diff and we set our geometry up, and it works really, really well. Built the drive shafts here at the shop. So yeah, the inside, let's look at the inside. We had our buddies over at Comal Truck Gear. They did the Line-X on the tub. We used a Genrite center console, low car shifter for the 6L80E. I forget who makes this transfer case shifter, but that worked out perfect too. Whoever we ordered it from, I forget, I'm so really sorry. They did a good job of sizing the cable length and everything, and it shifts perfect. So typically on the Genrite center console, you'd see these pieces in there, but we took those out because when we did the stereo system on here, we really, I mean, it's 2024, everybody's streaming everything, so we put in a JL Audio. It's basically a boat unit that you Bluetooth your phone to, and it'll stream. And then we put wakeboard speakers back here, little ones, not big ones. We're trying not to crowd everything up back here, but we took those same speakers and we had our buddies over at Audio Source go ahead and build these nice inserts here to mount the JL Audio speakers in the front. So now you can actually hear what's going on in the vehicle when you're doing 85, 90 down the interstate. We used a Switch Pros here to operate most of the accessories on the vehicle. However, he has more options. That one's already getting pretty full. So you like that too? I love that. This is from PSE, by the way. So we use that PSE steering column with the steering wheel, detachable steering wheel. I wanted a push button start. So you just, on here, you have an ignition on and a push button, but then you have 5 other basically accessories that you can use that are over here on toggle switches, right? Oh, there's windshield wipers. So when we gutted every piece of wiring in here, we gutted everything, including the wiring to the windshield wipers. So those are on a toggle switch now. Put your ignition on, flip it on, everything comes alive. Push to start. It's beautiful. I love how simple this build became because we just built our own vehicle basically. So all the wiring became our own. This right here, this neat unit right here, anybody that's got a tractor can probably recognize this. I know my Mahindra tractor has the same switch on it, but this is really cool. I forget the name of the company that built this. I don't think it's Hotwire. This is really nice because it gave us our turn signal, left and right turn signals, horn button, your high beam, low beams, off, on, hazards, everything's here. And each channel, I guess you could call it, came with like 15 feet of wire. So whether you're hooking up the tail lights, the headlights, or whatever, we had plenty of wire on a TJ to get there. It has its own little fuse box, relays and everything built into it. So really we wired this guy in and all of a sudden everything became legal real quick. Our buddy Philip over at Kiwi Designs made our cup holders for us. Those were cool. He tried to match the TJ right here, the door panels. As you can see, he wanted to incorporate the same styling into them. He had to make these because the cup holders that came with the Jeep console from Genrite wouldn't really work because of where we placed the low car shifter. So Philip made those for us and then he just raised them up above the difference of what it wouldn't work. Yeah, just keep moving around it. I mean, spiderweb shade on top. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this build that it's really hard to remember. And I did my best to study on it before, but as you're walking around and you're looking at this thing, it's really distracting and it's hard for me to keep up with what I built here, or the whole entire shop built really. Skid plates are all custom. Everything's 100% custom underneath. We have our belly skid here in the middle, which we brought down. Should be even with these control bracket mounts, okay? Then we have an engine skid plate that ties in right there. Engine transmission skid plate comes up front and is totally protecting the engine oil pan. And that's something all Scott Roberts, he did all of that. And he did a phenomenal job on anything he did on there. Anything anybody did on this build, they did a great job. I mean, they really, really knocked it out of the park. And I think that's one of the things that's sort of important about this build. I was thinking about this the other night, how I can look at this build and I can, and it takes me back to a time in my business when I was where I was at the point. Like when I look at these wheels and I think about how they looked when we first got them and then we powder coated them. Like I remember that time frame in the shop. I remember when we got the Jeep back from paint and what it looked like, you know, and I can remember who was working in my business. And in a way, it's almost like this Jeep has been a living time capsule for me for my life and my business. Like one thing that has stayed constant here has been this Jeep and I, right? No matter what's been going on in the business, this Jeep, because this Jeep showed up like 5 months after I became a legitimate business and was in a shop, in a warehouse working. And ever since then, it's been this Jeep and I. And I've had employees come, some of those employees are still here, and I've had employees go. And, you know, sometimes that's a good thing, but most of the time it was kind of sad. And looking back at this build now, like I can see all those different things happening through in my life and in my business. So it's sort of bittersweet to see this Jeep go because, like I said, I mean, I'm not gonna have this thing around anymore. And yeah, for the last pretty good bit, you know, every time I walk in the shop and I saw it, I was disgusted because, you know, it should be gone by now. But I am gonna miss it. I mean, it's a gnarly piece of work. It's a beautiful, it's art to me. Look, we even put the Motobilt, those are gussets, but they got bottle openers built into them. There's some back here too, you can't get to them, but yeah, that's bottle openers for Ben. But yeah, see, that kind of stuff like there is like, that's the stuff that I look at. And I remember when I ordered those, I remember what I was thinking about when I ordered them. I remember, you know, Tony welding them in, and yeah, I'm just sad that this thing's going away. At the same time, I'm kind of happy, but you know, I'm sure the guys here at the shop don't like coming to work every day and still seeing it here. I know my wife doesn't like still seeing it here. I'm sure Ben, the guy that owns Jeep, is kind of anxious to get it back. So it's a happy day here, but it's a sad day. And it's also, you know, we get a lot of people that come in, they're like, hey, I have a TJ, would you build me a TJ? And I've been like, no, I don't work on TJs. I'll build this thing over again many, many times. I won't do TJ builds where we're, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like there's this big gap in between what I will do to a TJ or LJ, and this thing sits on the high end of that, is this build right here. So realistically, I can't tell you what this thing costs, but I think it comes down to one of those deals. If you had to ask what it costs, you couldn't afford it anyway. So don't ask me to build this and then ask me what it would cost. It's one of those deals where you just
say, I want that.
And then we would build it. We would probably source a TJ and build it out for him from the ground up. But again, I'm gonna be sad to see it go. I love this Jeep. I wish I owned this Jeep. There's been a lot of jokes that I'm actually the owner of the Jeep because nobody here has ever met Ben, and they think that I made him up and I've just been gaslighting them into building me a really gnarly TJ, but that's not true. I mean, it's Ben's a real person. I wish it was mine. I mean, I honestly, I hate to see it go. I love driving this thing. This thing is like a 3cc shot of testosterone. I mean, it's gonna blow your freaking mind getting in this thing and driving. I love it. I hate to see it go, but it is time to go, and it's also time to wrap up this video. So, guys, if you're interested in the TJ build like this, I'm open to building it again. Hit me up, let me know. For more information on off-roading and other cool builds, stuff like that, click right here. Gonna miss it. I am gonna miss it.